I think I know why your vent fan is leaking. Let's go. Okay, I am not going to purport to be an expert on van builds or vent fans, but this is my second van build. I've helped 2 other friends do their van builds, and I've experienced leaks in vent fans, and I think I know why vent fans leak, particularly 6 months to a year after install. Frequently, in my experience, they're fine, and then one day they just start leaking. And there's 2 reasons for it, and I think I know why. So first, there are some things we need to know about how a vent fan is installed. So let's go inside. So this build is sneaking up on 3 years old, and we just got our first leak in the vent fan, and it only occurs, it's occurred twice, and it only occurs in like the heaviest, most torrential rain. And I'm gonna disassemble this right here so you can sort of see how a vent fan is installed. It's pretty straightforward, but maybe you don't know. And I might do it differently than some people do it because there is a step that I sort of made up. So we'll get to that. Not an expert. The first thing that you need to be aware of with Sprinter vans, which is the only van that I have experience with, I have not built out other types of vans. Sprinter vans collect water. The way the roof is designed, water tends to sit on the roof, which if you're prone to have a leak, that's only going to make it worse. I've also been told that they collect water in the body panels down low, is that the black banding around the lower section of the van tends to let water in. That is something I've not delved into because frankly, I'm afraid of what I'm going to find, but yeah. So standing water is a problem, and I will frequently, if it's pouring rain, and it has been pouring rain here in Pennsylvania for the past 3 days, I'll park the van on an angle so that one end is sloping down so that the water won't pool, it'll drain off. Even still, when I do that, when I drive away, there's generally at some point when I stop, a puddle comes down over the windshield. So something to be aware of. Sprinter vans collect water, which is going to make any leaking problem worse. That's sort of the first thing to be aware of. Let's take this out. Okay, this is dry, which is good because it has been raining really hard. You can't really see it, but this is a wood frame that I built. This is some of my insulation. There's 2 layers of it in this van. And I can actually see there is some water damage, but it is dry now, and that's from the other leak. And so essentially the way that this is built is you cut out the hole in the roof, and then I build a wooden frame to match that hole, then use the fan itself to mark the drill holes, take it off, drill the holes, put the fan down, and then attach the fan to the frame, which is then squeezing together the wood of the frame with the plastic of the vent fan with the metal of the roof in between. Oh, and you sand down the metal edge and paint it so it doesn't rust. But between the plastic flange of the fan and the metal of the roof, you use butyl tape, which is this thick blue, usually blue in my experience, sort of squishy, sort of like bubble gum, but it's a roll of tape. And you lay that down, and then when you connect the fan to the frame, it squeezes that, creating a seal. But that's not enough. Once you get it in place and sealed with the butyl tape, there's still one more step, which is you seal the edge of the plastic frame as well as all the bolt heads so that it doesn't leak there. And you're going to see an old looking one. It should look nice and clean, but essentially it looks like this. So you seal it around here, and you can see it's not very pretty, but I'm not really worried about it because it's no one's going to see it but me, or whoever is up on the roof. But that brings us to problem number 2, is what do you seal that with? I'm sure I used the wrong stuff the first time, and the second time it lasted 3 years. It lasted much better. So let me show you option 1, which I used, which I think is wrong, which I think a lot of people use, and then option 2, which works way better. This, or something like it, is what I think most people use, which is some form of waterproof silicone. And here's the deal. It's made for use indoors. It's not designed to be exposed to UV 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And I think that relatively quickly it gets hard and brittle and then it leaks. So like 6 months down the road to a year, depending on environment, I think that's the problem. With this van, which lasted almost 3 years before I had a problem, I used something else. So this is what I used the first time. This is what I used the second time. This is Sikaflex. Okay, Sikaflex is a marine adhesive and sealant that is frequently used to seal like windows on boats. And because it's marine, it's way more expensive. The price came down a little bit when I bought this tube. I want to say it was 20 bucks for the tube. When I did the first build on this, which was during the pandemic, it was 30 bucks versus like 8 bucks for silicone seal. But it lasted way longer. But you're saying, I still got a leak. How come? Well, the first thing is that 3 years is not bad, but there is another problem. The problem is dirt, which if you look at my roof, you can see is plenty dirty. When we lived in Norfolk, I had to park under a tree that made like so much dirt. This is way better than it was. When we were in the Outer Banks the last time, I took some time to really scrub the roof, but clearly I missed a spot because I didn't raise the vent fan. Check this out. That's what it did look like. This is what it looks like after cleaning, but still this is pretty dirty. And here's the thing about dirt. Dirt becomes a conduit for moisture, and the proof of that is right here. So these are 2 plugs that are used, I don't know, they're put in the factory, I don't know what they're really used for, but they were sealed, and when we were out in the Outer Banks, they started to leak. And I had an old tube of Sikaflex, and I was able to cover these up completely, but it was all in the edge like this, and so I'm pretty sure that's why it was leaking. And that was something that I learned with waterproof jackets, is that when they get dirty, they tend to leak more because the dirt can be a conduit. I am assuming that that is what caused the leak back here, because that was factory sealed. I never opened it, and it was leaking. And it's not leaking now that I've sealed it. So, again, not an expert, but I think the dirt is part of the problem. So, we're getting ready to go to Maine. We're going to be up there for 3 weeks. I need to get this van ready to go, but the first thing I need to do, clean this, remove some of that old Sikaflex, and replace it with fresh Sikaflex, and I should be good to go. But the first step is cleaning this roof. Okay, far from spotless, but way cleaner. Okay, I was gonna remove all of this, but the first thing I noticed is it's pretty pliable, which is a good sign. But then I noticed an absolute gap in the sealant right there. So I think I'm just gonna reseal the front of this with Sikaflex and leave the old stuff in place. So yeah, let's do that. And it makes sense that now that I see that it would leak right from that little gap. That makes perfect sense. Because in torrential rain, when the van's not moving and the water stacks up there, it's going to get into that spot. I still think that there's a problem with this stuff and this stuff is better, but I'm now even more impressed with this stuff, is that it's at 3 years and is still working well. I'm just going to crack that, or patch that one seam, and be good to go. Okay, that should take care of it. I need to seal up this tube of Sikaflex so that it doesn't end up like this dead tube of Sikaflex. This is what I used to fix the 2 factory seals that were leaking. It was all plugged up, and so I literally cut it open and just used a putty knife. I am sure the rest of it is dead, but just in case. So I need to seal this up a little bit better, and that should take care of it. So I guess the dirt wasn't a factor, but if I hadn't gotten the dirt off, I wouldn't have seen that slight gap. And that's just me doing a messy job in the first place, and honestly a pretty messy job the second time as well. So, but to get this van ready for Maine in a week, she still needs a deep clean, really deep clean. And I've got one other thing I need to repair, which is a little bit of rust on the roof from where I load the boat. So I'm gonna get on those things. Hopefully you're outside doing something fun. I'll be here working on this. I'll see you out there.